the scent of cinnamon and danger. The small town of Willow Creek always smelled like cinnamon in the mornings. It wasn't just the trees or the air. It was her, Mrs. Lena Porter. Her bakery, Sugar and Soul, sat quietly on the corner of 3rd and Pine, nestled between a bookstore and a barber shop that hadn't changed their signs in 20 years. Lena opened her shop every morning at 4 a.m. sharp, just as she had for the last 36 years. The ovens roared to life, filling the air with the warm scent of cinnamon rolls, buttery croissants, and banana bread. She was 72 now, but her hands still moved with the rhythm of youth, her eyes still sparkled with quiet determination, and her smile, though soft, carried the weight of a woman who had survived storms most never saw. She wore her hair in a bun, always. And her apron had a stitched heart in the middle that read, "For you, Jim." Jim was her husband. He passed away 10 years ago. But in that bakery, she still felt like he stood beside her. On this particular Monday morning, Lena was humming to herself, setting trays on the front counter. The bakery was just opening. The first regulars would walk in soon, the mailman, Mr. Eckhart, with his usual apple turnover, and Jenny, the nurse, who always ordered 3 muffins, one of which she said was for the road, but everyone knew. It never made it out the door, but something felt off today. As she placed a tray of danishes in the glass display, the chime above the door rang, not once but several times, in a fast, jarring rhythm. 3 men walked in. Leather jackets, scuffed boots, thick gloves even though the morning air was warm. They didn't smell like cinnamon. They smelled like gasoline and trouble. The tallest of them had a beard that curled under his chin and sunglasses that never left his face. He stepped up to the counter and leaned over it like it was his own table. The other 2 spread out, one near the coffee stand and the other by the back door. Lena's hands froze on the pastry tongs. "Morning, ma'am," the bearded one said, with a grin that didn't touch his eyes. "Nice place you got here." Lena nodded, polite but firm. "Thank you. Can I get you something?" He looked around, then picked up a muffin without asking. "Nah, just thought we'd come say hello, new friends in town." His voice was coated with honey, but it dripped with threat. Lena could hear it, feel it. It wasn't the first time men like this had come through Willow Creek. But it was the first time they stayed. "We're starting a little protection group," he continued. "Just making sure businesses like yours stay safe." Lena stared at him. Safe from what? His grin widened. From people who might want to cause harm. Broken windows, fire, things that could ruin a place like this. She didn't say a word, just stared. Her eyes didn't blink. They didn't shake. The man seemed amused by that. "You'd only need to give a small weekly donation," he said casually, brushing crumbs off his leather jacket. "Call it community support." Before she could reply, the man near the coffee pots knocked over a stack of cups. They scattered across the floor with a loud clatter. Lena flinched. The bearded one leaned closer. "See? Accidents happen." "Get out," Lena said, quietly but clearly. The man blinked. "What's that?" "Get out." His face twitched. He wasn't used to being told no. Not by someone with gray in her hair and flour on her cheeks. But he laughed it off. Not because he wasn't angry, but because anger would come later. "We'll be back tomorrow," he said, licking the last of the muffin from his thumb. "And next time, bring cash." They left. The chime above the door sounded again, softer now. But the warmth in the bakery disappeared with them. Lena stood still for a long moment. Her heart was racing, but she didn't let it show. She bent down, picked up the cups and wiped the counter. Then she flipped the sign on the door to closed and locked it. She walked slowly to the back room, sat in her husband's old armchair and let one tear fall. She thought of calling the police. But in Willow Creek, calls like that went ignored. The sheriff was young and careless, and rumors whispered that the bikers had already gotten to him. She could handle herself until she couldn't. But who would help her now? Little did she know. Help was already on the way. The black SUV rolled into town just after 7 a.m. It stopped at a red light that rarely changed, and inside it, Keanu Reeves sat in the back seat quietly watching the sleepy town wake up. He had just finished a concert in Dallas the night before, an intimate charity show for an orphanage, and had decided to take a break from the madness of Hollywood. His assistant had suggested a remote cabin near the mountains. Peaceful, quiet, away from cameras. But Keanu had another reason for choosing Willow Creek. His mother once told him about the bakery in this town. She passed away before he ever got to visit. She used to say, "One day take someone you love to Sugar and Soul. Sit by the window. Order the cinnamon rolls. You'll understand then." She was right about many things in life. And Keanu, though, worn from years of fame, still followed the soft echoes of her voice. "I'll walk from here," he told his driver, grabbing a simple black hoodie and slipping it on. He didn't want attention. Not now. Not here. As he walked down the narrow street, a young girl ran past him, nearly tripping over her shoelace. She looked up, recognized his face, and froze. "You're..." Keanu smiled. "Just someone visiting." She grinned and ran off. He turned the corner and stopped in front of the bakery. The lights were off. The closed sign still hung in the window. Odd for a Monday morning. He cupped his hands to the glass and looked inside. The trays were half filled. The register, untouched. Something wasn't right. He gently knocked on the door. Nothing. He knocked again. Finally, a shadow moved inside. The door opened slightly and a pair of tired eyes looked out. "We're closed today," Lena said quietly. Keanu nodded. "Just wanted to see if everything's all right. I was hoping to try your cinnamon rolls." She studied his face. There was something familiar about him. Kind eyes, steady voice. But she didn't recognize the man the world adored. "You're not from around here," she said. "No, just passing through." A long pause. "We open tomorrow." Keanu nodded again and walked away. Not pushing, not questioning. But something in her voice stayed with him. He turned the corner and pulled out his phone. Called someone he trusted, someone from his security team. The call was short. "I might need you guys to look into something. Small town, local bakery, something's off." When Keanu returned to his cabin that night, he couldn't shake the image of Lena's face. Strong, yes, but burdened. Afraid to show it. He stared out at the quiet forest, hands in his pockets, thinking of his mother, her stories, and the scent of cinnamon that once made everything feel safe. He whispered, "Not on my watch." Whispers in the flour the next morning. The bakery opened late. Lena Porter stood behind the counter, hands trembling as she placed a tray of croissants in the display case. Her back ached more than usual. Her fingers, once firm and steady, fumbled with the register. She hadn't slept. Not after what happened yesterday. Every knock on the door made her heart jump. Every sound outside felt like footsteps coming closer. But she opened the shop anyway. For Jim. For the regulars who depended on her pastries to start their day with a smile. By 8 a.m., Jenny walked in, noticing the dim lights and Lena's pale face. "You okay?" Jenny asked gently. Lena nodded. "Just tired." But Jenny saw through the lie. Still, she didn't push. She just stayed a little longer, sipping her coffee slowly, making sure Lena wasn't alone. A few other customers came and went, offering small talk and warm smiles, but none of them knew the storm that brewed behind Lena's eyes. At 10:12 a.m., the door opened again. It was them, the bearded man, his friends. This time they didn't speak right away. They just stood in the middle of the bakery, like shadows cast by something wicked. Customers froze. Jenny stood up and stepped forward, ready to defend her friend, but Lena shook her head softly. "Not yet." "Morning, sweetheart," the bearded man said, grinning. "We came for our donation." Lena wiped her hands on her apron and walked calmly to the register. She opened it. There was hardly anything inside. She pulled out a single $20 bill and held it up. "That's all I made today." His smile faded. "Are you messing with me?" She didn't flinch. "You said a small donation." He grabbed the money, crushed it in his fist, and leaned forward. Don't test me, lady. He flicked over a jar of cookies on the counter. Glass shattered everywhere. Customers gasped. Jenny yelled out, "You need to leave, now." The bearded man stared at her. "Or what? Or I'll call the police." He laughed. "Go ahead. Let me know how that works out for you." Lena's eyes stayed on him, burning quiet fire, but she said nothing more. The men left, leaving crumbs, broken glass, and fear behind. Meanwhile, deep in the woods outside Willow Creek, Keanu sat at the edge of the porch of his rented cabin. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke. He had his guitar on his lap, but he wasn't playing. His phone buzzed. "We found something," the voice on the line said. "His security friend, Leo." "They're a small gang," Leo continued. "Call themselves the Black Reef. Been moving through towns, extorting businesses, mostly elderly owners, soft targets." Keanu clenched his jaw. "They travel on bikes, stay out of big cities, never stay long." "Are they dangerous?" Keanu asked. "Yes, but mostly bullies. Only get violent when cornered. Locals are scared, cops don't care. They're ghosts on paper." Keanu stood up slowly, eyes fixed on the trees. "I want to meet them." Leo paused. "You sure?" "I'm sure." Keanu walked back into Willow Creek that afternoon wearing jeans, a faded hoodie, and sunglasses. No one recognized him. Not as the movie star, not as the rock musician. He was just a stranger with tired eyes and a calm walk. He headed straight to Sugar and Soul. The glass had been cleaned, the broken jar replaced. But something was different. The warmth in the air was missing. The walls felt cold. Lena looked up when he entered. "You again?" she said softly. "Yes. I was hoping, maybe, today I could get those cinnamon rolls." She stared at him for a moment, then slowly she nodded. "They're in the back." She disappeared into the kitchen. Keanu sat at a table near the window, just like his mother had told him. Sunlight poured through the glass, lighting up dust in the air. It felt sacred somehow. When Lena returned, she placed a plate in front of him. One large cinnamon roll, still warm, iced to perfection. Keanu took a bite, his eyes closed. "This is home," he whispered. Lena smiled faintly, but there was sadness behind it. "My husband used to say that," she said. "He built this place for me. Every morning he'd take the first bite, said it kept his soul happy. He sounds like a good man." He was. A pause. Keanu looked at her. "Those men, do they come often?" Her body tensed. She didn't answer right away. "They will," she said, "until they get what they want." "And the police?" Silent or scared. Keanu nodded slowly. "You shouldn't be alone." She looked at him confused. "You don't know me," she said. "No. But I've seen people like you. Strong. Too strong sometimes. But even strong people deserve help." Another long pause. Then, for the first time, Lena's voice cracked. "I'm not strong, not anymore." "Yes, you are," Keanu said. "But strength doesn't mean standing alone." Later that evening, Lena locked up the bakery. The streets were quiet. The lamplights flickered. As she walked to her car, she noticed 3 motorcycles parked across the street. Empty. Silent. Waiting. She shivered. But then, from the shadows near the bookstore, a figure stepped out. It was him. Keanu. He didn't say a word. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes watching the bikes. Lena paused. "You don't have to." "I know," he said. But he stayed. As she drove off, Keanu stayed under the streetlight, staring at the bikes. The silence was thick. Even the night held its breath, and far off, in a dark bar on the edge of town, the bikers drank and laughed, unaware that tomorrow would be different, because tomorrow they wouldn't be the only ones walking into Sugar and Soul. The man in the corner booth. The next morning, Lena arrived at the bakery earlier than usual. The sky was still dark and the town was asleep. She unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and took a deep breath. The smell of flour and cinnamon greeted her like an old friend. This was her safe space, her sanctuary. But something was different. On The table near the window, her husband's favorite table, a note had been left. She picked it up with shaky fingers. It read, "I'll be here when they come. You won't be alone." No name, just that. She knew who wrote it. By 6:30 a.m., the ovens were full and the display case was already half loaded. The sky turned orange outside, and soon the regulars started arriving. But there was something unusual about today's crowd. There were a few strangers, silent men seated in different corners of the bakery, clean-shaven, sunglasses, black coats. They didn't order anything. Just coffee. They barely sipped it. Lena noticed them, but she didn't ask questions. Keanu entered quietly and sat at the corner booth, the same table where her husband once used to sit. He didn't wear sunglasses today. He looked calm, peaceful, but his eyes never stopped moving, always watching, always reading the room. He nodded to Lena when their eyes met. She nodded back. Without a word, she placed a plate of cinnamon rolls in front of him. It was becoming their silent language. "You okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said softly. "Are you?" She hesitated. "Ask me again later." At 9:12 a.m. they arrived, the same three men, louder this time. No attempt to hide their power. Leather jackets, wide shoulders, laughter like sharp knives in a quiet room. The bearded leader pushed through the door, letting it slam into the wall behind him. The other two followed, smirking. Keanu looked up but didn't move. The strangers in black coats didn't flinch. Customers froze. The leader walked straight to the counter. "Well, well," he said. "Thought we might find the doors locked after yesterday." Lena stayed silent. "But I'm glad to see you're open, and I'm hoping you've got something for us today." Keanu stood slowly and walked toward the counter. The leader turned, annoyed. "Back off, man. This is private business." Keanu looked him straight in the eyes. "You're in her space. Lower your voice." The bakery fell into silence. The leader blinked, then laughed. "Who do you think you are? Her son? Boyfriend? Lawyer?" Keanu didn't smile, didn't blink, didn't step back. Just someone who believes in standing between good people and bad ones. The air in the bakery tightened. The other two bikers stepped forward. But before they could say anything, one of the black-coated men at the far table stood up. He reached into his jacket. The room tensed. But it wasn't a weapon he pulled out. It was a badge. Federal. The leader's smirk vanished. The man spoke. "Sit down." The two bikers looked to their leader, uncertain. The agent took a step forward. "We've been watching you for weeks. Extortion, intimidation, conspiracy. You've made a lot of mistakes." The leader raised his hands. "This is a misunderstanding." Keanu stepped beside the agent. "No, this is justice." Within minutes, the bakery was surrounded. Two more agents entered through the back door. One went to Lena and whispered gently, "We're here because someone made a call. You're safe now." Lena looked at Keanu. He didn't speak. He just watched the arrest happen quietly, respectfully. The leader and his men were handcuffed and walked out without a fight. No threats, no more laughter, just silence. The kind that comes after a storm has passed. Later that day, after the bakery returned to its peaceful rhythm, Lena sat at the corner booth across from Keanu. 2 cups of tea sat between them. "How did you know?" she asked. "I've seen people like them before," he said. "I've seen what fear does to good hearts. I couldn't let that happen again." She looked down. "They would have destroyed this place." "Not while I'm breathing." She smiled softly. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know." "Then, why?" He thought for a moment. "Because my mother used to talk about this place. She said it had the best cinnamon rolls on earth. She said kindness lives here. I had to protect it. For her. For you. For people who still believe in quiet strength." Her eyes filled with tears. "Your mother sounds like a wonderful woman." She was. A long silence passed between them. Soft. Warm. Then Lena said something she hadn't said in years. "Thank you," Keanu nodded. "You're welcome." But even as the sun set peacefully that evening, something lingered in the air. A car parked 2 streets away. Inside it, a different man watched the bakery through binoculars. He wasn't part of the original group. He wasn't smiling. And in his lap was a photo of the 3 arrested men and a scribbled note that said, "Clean this up." He made a call. "Yeah, I found him. It's Keanu Reeves." Pause. "Yes, the actor." Pause. "Do I wait?" Another pause, then coldly, "No, I act." Revenge rides in silence. The morning after the arrests, Willow Creek felt lighter. The streets were brighter. Customers at Sugar and Soul stayed longer, chatting and laughing. Lena moved with more peace in her steps. Her eyes, though still weary, no longer searched the doorway with fear. Keanu sat at the corner booth sipping his tea, watching everything like a quiet guardian. The regulars had started to recognize him, not as the famous actor, but as someone who simply cared. A young boy approached him that morning. "Are you really him?" he whispered. Keanu smiled. "Who do you think I am?" The boy shrugged. "Someone who helps people." "That's good enough." Lena overheard and smiled to herself. For the first time in many weeks, she felt safe. But danger doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly in the dark. On the outskirts of town, near the old railway station, a different kind of man arrived. His name was Vince, lean build. Dark sunglasses, sharp jawline, no tattoos, no noise. Just cold silence and the steady rhythm of a man on a mission. He didn't ride with the original gang, but he trained them. He was the reason they never got caught, until now. And someone had paid him to fix this mess. Vince entered a rented garage where his black bike was already waiting. Beside it, taped to the wall, was a printed image of Keanu walking out of the bakery. Vince stared at the picture. "Hollywood," he muttered. "You should have stayed out of this." That afternoon, Lena was restocking flour in the back when she heard the chime of the door. She walked out, wiping her hands on her apron. The bakery was quiet. Too quiet. One man stood in the middle of the room, tall, clean, no leather jacket. But something about him sent chills up her spine. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for Keanu Reeves," he said, voice calm and cold. Lena hesitated. "He's not here right now." Vince looked around the bakery. His eyes scanned every corner, every person, and landed back on her. "Tell him Vince stopped by," he said, "and tell him this isn't over." He turned and walked out, just as silently as he came. Lena stood frozen. The room felt cold, again. She locked the door and made one call. Keanu was at the cabin going over a charity project on his laptop when his phone buzzed. He saw Lena's name and picked up instantly. Her voice was steady, but something in her tone made his spine straighten. "Someone came to the bakery," she said. "He asked for you." Keanu listened closely. Tall man, quiet, said his name was Vince. Keanu's eyes darkened. "I know who he is." A pause. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Keanu didn't drive. He walked. His pace was fast, his jaw clenched. Vince wasn't just some thug. He was surgical. Smart. Dangerous. Keanu had heard of him before, back when a friend's shelter had been mysteriously burned down after refusing a protection racket in another town. The reports were buried. Nothing was ever proven. But Keanu had always suspected Vince, and now Vince had come here, for Lena, for him. When Keanu entered the bakery, the air felt heavy again. He looked at Lena, then walked to the door and flipped the sign to closed. "He'll be back," Keanu said. "What do we do?" Lena asked. "We wait, but not alone." He made a quick call to Leo. "I need full backup. This guy's the real deal. Get eyes on him now." Then he turned to Lena. "Tonight, you're staying somewhere safe." She shook her head. "This is my home, and it'll still be here tomorrow, but I need you safe tonight. Keanu." He placed a hand gently on hers. "Please." After a long pause, she nodded. That night, Lena stayed at a small inn run by her friend Jenny. Safe, secure, Two agents posted outside the room. She didn't argue. Keanu stayed behind, in the bakery, alone. He sat in the corner booth. No lights, just the glow of the street lamp outside. And he waited. At 2:19 a.m., he heard it. A motorcycle engine. Not loud, just steady. Then silence. A figure moved. Through the shadows, approached the front window and peered inside. Keanu didn't move. Vince stepped through the back alley door, which he had picked open silently. He walked inside, saw the empty bakery, but Keanu was ready. Looking for something? Keanu's voice echoed softly. Vince turned slowly. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. They stared at each other in the dim light. Two men, one known for movies, the other known for destruction. You ruined my operation, Vince said. They were hurting people. People like her. She was easy, weak. Keanu stepped forward. Say her name again, and I promise you'll regret it. Vince smirked. You think this ends here? Keanu took another step. No, I think this is just the beginning. The door behind them opened. Leo walked in, followed by two more agents. Vince looked around, realizing too late that he had been watched the whole time. His plan to intimidate had turned into a trap. He reached for something in his coat. Don't, Leo said, raising his voice. Vince paused, then dropped the small blade to the floor. You win this round, Vince muttered. Keanu stepped forward. There won't be another round. Vince was arrested without a fight. No violence, just quiet defeat. The storm had come and gone, and Keanu was still standing. By morning, the bakery reopened. Lena returned, escorted by agents, to find everything untouched. But on her counter was a note from Keanu. You were never weak. You just needed someone to remind you how strong you already are. Thank you for the cinnamon rolls. I'll be back soon. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't take credit. He just walked away. The way he always did. Quietly, kindly, with purpose. But deep in the city, far from Willow Creek, a new player received a photo of Vince in cuffs. She was older, meaner, and she had once raised Vince like a son. She looked at the photo, then at the news clipping about Keanu Reeves. She smiled. Let's see how much kindness he's got left. The woman behind the fire Willow Creek was quiet again. The morning sun painted golden lines on the sidewalks. Kids laughed as they walked to school. The bell over Sugar and Soul chimed gently as customers came in for their morning bread and coffee. Lena stood behind the counter, finally smiling with ease. It had been 3 days since Vince was taken away. And each day, things felt more normal, more safe. Jenny dropped by to say hello. Mr. Eckhart cracked one of his old jokes. The mailman brought flowers for Lena from a secret admirer, though everyone guessed it was Keanu. But Keanu himself hadn't returned. He left a note. He disappeared quietly, just like he came, and Lena, though thankful, missed him. What she didn't know was that Keanu hadn't gone far. He stayed at the cabin, just outside town, watching, waiting, making sure no one else came for her, and he had reasons to be cautious, because trouble was already on its way. Hundreds of miles away in a forgotten corner of the city, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes sat in a leather chair, flipping through a folder filled with photos, arrest reports, surveillance images, a picture of Keanu Reeves standing inside Lena's bakery. Her name was Delilah Voss, but people who knew her never said it aloud. They called her the widow, because every man who crossed her never made it back home. She was the real leader. The gangs, just puppets. Vince, her blade. And now, her blade had been broken. By him. By Keanu. She placed the photo on her desk and whispered, "You've made it personal." She pressed a button on her desk. A door opened. 2 men entered. Tall, silent. Tattooed across their faces and necks. She handed them the photo. "Find him," she said. "Make him wish he never set foot in that bakery." They nodded and left without a word. Keanu's phone buzzed at 2:03 p.m. It was Leo. We've got a problem. Keanu sat up straight. What kind? Her. The widow. She's not just mad. She's coming. Keanu exhaled slowly. How much time? No idea. But she doesn't play games. If she's sending people, she'll hit hard and fast. Keanu stood up and looked out the window. Then we don't wait. We prepare. That night, Lena was about to lock up the bakery when Keanu walked through the door. Her heart jumped. You came back, she said. I never really left, he replied. She saw something different in his face. Something heavy. What is it? She asked. Someone worse is coming. Worse than Vince? Yes. And she's not after the bakery. She's after me. Why? Keanu looked at her, soft and steady. Because I ruined her plan, and people like her, they don't forgive. Lena took a deep breath. What do? We stay calm. We keep this place safe. And we don't let fear run the show. He helped her lock the doors, check the windows, reinforce the back, exit. He even installed a camera near the alley. Lena watched him work, amazed by his focus. You're not just an actor, are you? She asked. Keanu smiled. No, not when it counts. At midnight, a black van pulled into town. The two tattooed men stepped out. They didn't talk, didn't blink. They studied the streets, marked the bakery on a map. They were trained, silent, lethal. The next morning, everything felt normal. Too normal. Lena opened the shop. The sun was bright. Customers returned. The scent of cinnamon filled the air. Keanu stood nearby, pretending to browse the bookstore, eyes always on her. But at 10:27 a.m., the silence broke. A loud bang came from behind the bakery. Not a gunshot. A crash. Someone had smashed the security camera. Keanu ran. He burst into the alley and found the camera hanging by its wires. On the ground below it, a note had been pinned to the wall with a knife. The note read, "She's watching." Keanu moved quickly. He called Leo. "It's happening." "Now," Leo replied. "We're en route. 10 minutes out." Keanu returned to the bakery and locked the doors. Lena looked at him, afraid. "What's happening?" "Get to the back. Stay. Lo, do not open the door unless I call your name. But, trust me," he gave her a phone. "If anything happens to me, call the first number." Then he stepped outside. Alone. At 10:39 a.m., the tattooed men entered the street. No one else noticed. No one else understood what they were. But Keanu did. He walked into the middle of the road, stood between them and the bakery. "This is where it ends," he said. The first man pulled out a blade. The second cracked his knuckles. Keanu dropped his bag and took off his hoodie. Beneath it, a plain black shirt. His eyes didn't blink. His voice didn't shake. "You don't get to threaten her. Not today. Not ever again." The first man rushed forward. Fast. But Keanu was faster. He moved like a wave. Fluid. Sharp. He disarmed the man, twisted his arm, and dropped him to the pavement in seconds. The second man paused, then charged. Keanu ducked, struck his knee, then his side. A clean takedown. Years of training. Quiet skill. No wasted movement. Both men lay on the ground groaning. Sirens echoed in the distance. Leo's team had arrived. Agents poured out of unmarked vehicles and took the men into custody. Keanu stood in the center of it all, calm. Not a scratch on him. Back inside the bakery, Lena was crying quietly, but not from fear, from relief. When Keanu walked in, she ran to him and hugged him tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." "You don't need to thank me," he said softly. "You just need to keep making cinnamon rolls." She laughed through her tears. But outside town, the widow watched a live stream on her tablet, recorded from a hidden drone. She saw everything. She closed the screen and whispered, "So he wants to play hero." Her eyes narrowed. "Next time I'll come myself." The widow's final visit. The sun rose slowly over Willow Creek, but something in the air felt heavier than usual. It was quiet, Too quiet. Birds didn't chirp. Dogs didn't bark. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Inside Sugar and Soul, Lena moved carefully, watching the windows as she prepared the morning trays. Cinnamon rolls, croissants. Her hands worked, but her heart felt tight. She had seen what happened yesterday, how Keanu stood between the bakery and danger, how two trained men were stopped by one quiet man who asked for nothing in return. She had never known a movie star could be this kind or this fearless. She looked over at the corner booth. Empty. He wasn't here yet, but somehow she knew he would be back. Just a few miles outside of town, a black car pulled over on a dirt road. The driver opened the door and stepped out. It was her, the widow. Her silver hair blew gently in the wind. She wore a dark coat and black gloves. Her eyes were calm, cold, unreadable. She looked at Willow Creek in the distance and said to herself, one bakery, one actor, and too many people talking. She wasn't here to send messages anymore. She was here to end the story. Keanu was already awake. He stood at the edge of the forest, looking down at the town. He had been warned. Leo had called that morning. We have eyes on her. She's coming, in person. Keanu nodded. Then I'm staying. Leo paused. She's not like the others. She doesn't run. She finishes things. Keanu looked down at his hands. Scarred. Steady. So do I. He walked back toward the town. Back toward the bakery. Every step slow. Calm. Full of purpose. Lena looked up as the chime rang. Keanu stepped inside wearing the same black hoodie. His eyes were focused. His jaw tight. She's coming, isn't she? Lena asked. He nodded. Should I leave? He shook his head. Not this time. If you leave, she wins. This place matters. It stood longer than her cruelty. It deserves to survive. Lena nodded, though her hands trembled. Then I'm staying. Outside, a sleek black car parked across from the bakery. The widow stepped out. No bodyguards, no weapons in hand. Just her and the power she carried in her presence. People paused on the sidewalks. They didn't know her name, but they felt her energy, like ice sliding through the air. She crossed the street and walked into Sugar and Soul. The bell above the door rang. Keanu stood up from the booth. Lena stayed behind the counter, heart pounding. The widow scanned the bakery slowly. Her eyes landed on Keanu. So, she said calmly, this is the place. Keanu nodded. Yes. Smells like sugar and weakness. No, he replied softly. It smells like kindness and strength. The widow stepped forward. You cost me money, power, people. You had no right to take this town, and you had no right to stop me. I didn't do it for right or wrong, Keanu said. I did it because someone had to. A tense silence. The widow looked at Lena. You must be the baker, she said coldly, the one who refused to pay. Lena stared back. I'm the one who made the cinnamon rolls. The widow chuckled. Cute. She turned back to Keanu. What's your plan? Fight me here? No, he said. Talk. Make you understand. Something. I don't negotiate. This isn't a negotiation. Keanu stepped closer. I've lived a life of movies, fame, stages. But none of that matters when a woman who lost her husband just wants to keep her bakery open. None of that matters when gangs think they can crush people just because they're quiet. He looked her straight in the eyes. You're used to fear. You feed on it. But not here. Not anymore. The widow tilted her head, curious. What makes you think I won't burn this place to the ground? Keanu answered simply. Because if you try, you'll lose more than a war. You'll lose your name. The door opened behind her. Agents stepped in quietly. Leo and 5 others. The widow turned her head just slightly. She had been followed. Cornered. Watched. Keanu had bought time, long enough to gather everything needed to end this. Leo stepped forward. We have you on record. Your orders, your payments, your threats, it's over. The widow smiled softly, then raised her hands. "Then take your victory," she whispered. She was cuffed and walked out without a word. Not angry, not shocked, just silent, like a queen leaving her crumbling empire. 2 days later, Lena reopened the bakery once more. This time, the town showed up in full force. Kids brought drawings, families clapped when she flipped the sign to "Open, AI." News reporter even came asking questions about the quiet hero who saved the bakery. But Keanu wasn't there. He had already left that morning, leaving behind only a note. Lena read it with tears in her eyes. Some stories are written with fame, others with flower and love. Yours is the one I'll never forget. Inside the note, a check. Enough money to fix the bakery, upgrade the ovens, and take a much-needed vacation. But Lena didn't cash it right away. Instead, she framed the note, hung it on the wall, next to a photo of her husband, and beside it, she placed a new message on the chalkboard. This bakery was saved by kindness, and a man who believed in it. Meanwhile, deep in a small apartment in another town, Keanu sat quietly with a guitar in his lap, a new song forming in his heart. Not about loss, not about fame, but about a small bakery and the brave woman who refused to be broken.